Toujours en direct du Mondial de l'Automobile, and we're speaking in English for our guests. We're live on stream on all social networks, Mobility Live here on Mondial de l'Automobile in Paris. And this main question, who could be, I mean, the question of all times, how to move from car makers to tech companies. We're speaking with Paolo De Noce. Bonjour, hello.
Good afternoon, bonjour.
Head of South EMEA of AUTODIS. I say hello and good afternoon to Ned Kurik, your CTO of Stellantis. Hello and good afternoon to Eric Grab.
Nice to be with you.
Vice-président de l'anticipation stratégique, innovation et développement durable, je ne sais pas ce que ça donne en anglais, Sustainability of Michelin.
Yeah, and strategic anticipation and co-innovation.
Thank you.
Easy.
Thank you. And Eric Fintin.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Nice to be here.
CEO of Software, Republic of Renault Group. So, gentlemen, did software replace hardware? It's 2022. Is it the year that we have to forget our old car, how we imagined it, and concentrate on software? Ed Kurik, what do you think?
It's a great question. And the question is, there are two questions there. One is, did the software replace hardware? And the second question is, should we forget about old cars? Well, the first question, did the software replace hardware? I say no. I think there's absolutely no way. We still sell hardware. We still sell cars. We still
wheels and steering wheel and a body.
Exactly. Well, you still need that sort of a hardware, but also underlying hardware to enable what's possible with the software. And I think that hardware is getting so much more sophisticated, so much more rich and capable. Then when you lay the software on top of it, then you have this amazing product that delivers the kind of experience. So then you say, your second question is, should we forget about old cars? I say, maybe not too fast, but I think we will have a new cars that are completely differently experienced from the cars we had before. And I think that the relationship and experience with the new car is going to be very, very different. So that's sort of my perspective.
Paolo, what do you think?
Well, I agree with Nat. It is clear that the cars will stay as a body, as a wheels, etc.
And as a dream.
And this is what I wanted to say. We always know that people buy cars because of what they represent, because of their image, and this stays unchanged. But if we consider the hardware as we used to consider it, we make a mistake, because things have been changing. We have been creating into the cars, into the old hardware, a lot of data which we need to use to make these data create something, create a new usage, create new services. This is the future. The future is combining what we call engineering with new technologies, putting together what comes from digital with what comes from engineering. This is, I think, the real future, which means that the car doesn't disappear, but it will be completely transformed.
Eric Grab.
Yeah, well, I agree, obviously, that we are facing the triple transformation, technological transformation you were mentioning in your sum up. And I ask you to read the sum up, which is well done. We are talking about Industry 4.0. We are talking about the data transformation, and we are also talking about the new energy transformation. These are technological transformation. I think we should also think about soft skills, and we discussed that already. Soft skills and innovating on how we innovate. If we are continuing to do what we have done during the past decades, I don't see why we should really face and tackle this transformation we are talking about, which are not only technological ones.
What have we done? Remind us.
Sorry?
What have we done? Remind us. You said we don't have to. It's a mistake to make what we did before. So
No, I
what
didn't
was
say
the
it's a mistake. I said we have to change the way we innovate. Because we have to accelerate. You know, in front of us we have big challenges, and I can list them with you guys, and I think we will need more than half an hour to do that. And we are not tackling this.
Actually, we have 45 minutes.
Okay, exactly. So, and we are not tackling that properly. So that's why we have to change the way we innovate together. So that's the initiative we took, but I'm not the only initiative. Software Republic is another initiative. We are, by the way, complementary. We are discussing together right now to develop partnerships. But these type of initiatives, Software Republic or Moving On, launched by Michelin, are quite fundamental if we want to accelerate and change the way we innovate together.
So what we keep and what we reject?
Well, what we reject is the way we have worked for us only, what I call enlarged company, or what we could call, what the academics are calling, or calling a business ecosystem. We are talking now about innovation ecosystem, where business will come, but we have first to find the right solutions for the right use cases. And this is not so easy to find alone. So take some example. When coming here, I listed some examples, concrete examples. Circular economy. What we did together with Renault at Flins, for example, in the factory of Flins, in the west part of Paris. You cannot do that alone, and Renault understood it. He came to Moving On and asked for our help. We have now more than 150 partners working together with this idea of recycling. Take the example of data. If we don't share data, and I know it's not easy for this gentleman to share data, but if we are not sharing data, we'll not be able to manage what the cities are calling curbside management. We'll not be able to optimize logistic chains. We'll not be able to develop new mobility services. Think about mass. I'm sure that Eric could talk about mass, which is not developed. Why? Because nobody is sharing data. So there are many examples like this where we need to cooperate and to share stuff. So I stop here because we have only 45 minutes.
Eric Fintin, about sharing data, this is interesting because one voice says we have to share the data, and the other voice says you have to protect it.
So before coming to the data, I think on the balance between software and hardware, of course, we are a selling product, but we are more selling usage. And so it's more the power and the balance of power between software and hardware that we need to change in our value chain, in our companies. And I think in the previous world, software was a collateral damage of hardware. And I think now it has to be the reverse, where we design the software-defined vehicle is the clear trend, and then hardware is kind of adapting, keeping a lot of emotional aspect, but being more on the a tool to make the experience a good one. As far as data is concerned, for sure, sharing and mixing data is a must to create value, because once again, the big debate on data protection, etc., is very critical, but it's becoming a problem when you don't bring actual value to the end customer. When you bring value, this question becoming less a problem because everybody would agree to have this value. I give you an example. If as a citizen you pay your tax and thanks to the car data, the phone data, fully anonymized, we can identify when there is a hole in the road and we can repair it earlier. It costs less traffic jam, less construction. I think everybody agrees to share the data to help the community for that because there is a clear purpose and a real added value. So on the data, I think this is really the end question is what does it bring as an actual service?
Yes, but you began to say your beginning was we're not selling products anymore. And I had a heart attack when I heard that. So do you really believe it?
Yes, we are moving more and more to usage-based mobility. But there is an object, there is a hardware behind it. But you rent your car, you use Uber or any other.
Or I buy my car and I drive it and I like it.
Less and less people do that.
In main cities, in big cities, but in the country, it's not the same. So, what do you say, Mr. Stellantis, about that? Mr. Stellantis, who knows very well Amazon as well.
Yeah, of course, of course. It's a really great question, and I'm a bit of a naysayer here, so I have to just sort of admit that. You know, for last 10 years we hear this story: people are going to move and just going to buy frictional ownership and things like that. I think in the, you know, if people can afford to buy products, they will buy products. Now, are there unmet needs, or like Uber? It was a big unmet need to sort of provide sort of. I still have a car, but I use Uber a lot. It was unmet need. I don't want to drive. You know, I want to have it.
Even on the advertising, buy a car, but for every day you take the metro.
Yeah, that kind of thing. You know, I tell this story. Even in the big cities, I tell this story. Have you ever tried to take a bus when it's minus 15 in Vienna? I lived in Vienna. It was minus 15, and you're sitting there waiting for the Straßenbahn to come. It's like a freaking cold. Like if I had the money to buy a car, I'd buy a car right there and drive it around. So I don't see a world in which we move to this sort of you know, service as well. I think we're going to still keep selling cars for a long, long time, maybe forever. Now, is there an unmet demand? Yes. Are we going to sell more services? Yes. How will the balance work out over the next 20 years is anyone's guess. Anyone who has any idea is going to be a billionaire next couple of years. But I don't think anyone has any really good idea how
Give it a
that's
try,
gonna play
you will
out.
become a billionaire.
You know, we're betting, right? So we have a free to move, which is essentially our car sharing business and car leasing
it's
business.
not new. I mean, it exists and it
absolutely.
lasts. I mean, the business model is still the same, and the reaction of people is not so. You know, you didn't have like old population selling the cars and use free to move from once. So
Yeah, I think
what
it's
is
going
the
to be a combination.
mentality?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Paolo, what do you think? I think if you may, the topic we're discussing about, it's like democracy. You have, you know, it's like in politics. You have the left, the right, the center, the middle, and nobody agrees. You are like that. You're not really agreeing, but we're trying to make it. So,
Well,
what do you think?
I think we will continue selling cars, but what has changed is that the people are buying or want to buy something different compared to what they were buying so far. And what they want to buy now is additional services, features, etc., which transform the car itself. So they will continue, I think people will continue buying cars, but the reasons why they are buying the cars are changing. And that's the reason why we need focus, I think, to the people we need to deliver these cars, to develop these cars, to define how these cars are done, because we need different people compared to what we were using so far. Those people are engineers, let's consider the word engineer, that already know what a car is, but they also know what new technologies could bring to a car. And these kind of people are not that present in the world so far. There are not that many people able to combine these two aspects of the world. When we consider a car maker, a car engineer, I'm a car engineer, so I can say what I'm going to say. We maybe think about an old guy. But the actual car engineer we need now is a very modern guy. He's somebody who knows what new technologies are, what data are, what to do with data, what to ask to the data, what to create with data. But he must know from where those data come, how to create those data in creating, in designing the cars. And for doing that, he needs definitely to know how the cars were done so far. My company is creating these guys, but I think overall, everywhere we need these kind of people, and this is the biggest change in terms of development that we need to face.
Interesting. Eric Grab.
No, I wanted to add to this list of competence and know-how and expertise some soft skills like how to co-innovate with others, which is something you don't learn at business schools. And that's why we are launching right now, beginning with Michelin, a program where we will offer our engineers, some of them, those guys we are calling explorers or explorators, an opportunity to moderate a community of interest with Renault, with Stellantis, with Valeo, with some other partners, to have a clear objective, a clear deliverables, and to try to manage that during 6 to 9 months. It's a tough job, because as you said, we are not agreeing in some cases. For example, sharing data. So that's a wonderful experience, concrete one, in situation, which we are offering now to engineers or to businessmen to learn how to innovate together, how to co-innovate with others. And I would add this as a soft skill, which is necessary in the future, in the coming years, if we want to find new disruptive solutions addressing the demand Eric was mentioning. Because these solutions, if they were existing already, we would have found them.
I'm using a stereo with a CD. And my children looked at me. Do you have heard about Spotify or Deezer? The question is, are we building cars for these generations, or are we still the spot on us? Eric Fantin.
No, I think we have to look also at the fundamentals of the auto industry, which are quite strange. It's the only product that loses so much value in a short amount of time. It's one of the very rare products which is so expensive and so less used, about 10% of its time. So I think all those items push us to rethink a little bit the usage of the car. And once again, I think we are talking a lot about the software part because we are a lot of engineers here around the table. But I agree with Eric. The other big change that is brought to us, and which is even more disturbing for our industry, for our skills, is this kind of ecosystemic approach. None of the big issue we have in our industry or in the mobility industry can be solved in the silo of the tier 2, tier 1, OEM and dealers. The big challenge needs new form of cooperation. We are trying that in Software Republic with tech companies which are a bit far, not directly in the value chain of auto, Thales, Orange, Dassault Systèmes, Atos, ST Microelectronics, and maybe other soon. And the idea is we try to do things that none of us can do alone. And frankly speaking, that's opening a lot of new doors. Of course, a lot of questions also because we don't always agree. But as soon as you agree that we cannot do it alone, it forces us naturally to cooperate. And that's a big trend that we should not forget.
If I may, what you forget to say is that the goal, of course, of all of us for the future generations is to have less cars. If you share your car, you will have less cars than we have now. We have 40 million cars in France, for instance.
I think first, what is not questionable is the growing need for mobility. Nobody, and even in the, I would say, high-income country, we have a huge mobility issue in some remote area, rural area, creating issue to access to education, to access to job, etc. So, and I'm not talking about less developed countries. So the need for mobility is growing, for sure. How you translate that, and if you have less car but you use them 10 times more, I don't think it's a real issue for the value creation of the industry. So, frankly speaking, what is very reassuring is that the need for mobility is high. The passion and the emotional aspect about car we can see around the booth in this show is still there. So I'm not worried about that. We just need to change our brain and the way we see the experience of the customer.
Eric Grab, you wanted to react.
Yeah, no, to rebound on both comments, we just finished a study with Kantar, which is a market research institute among young generations. And they are not refusing to use cars, not at all. They are just thinking differently in the use cases. And that's why, to rebound on your question, we have created in our ecosystem, where we have mainly big corporations, we have created Mobile, which is a mobility board of young leaders. So we are asking our partners, our big corporation partners, to select 2 or 3 young guys, high potential for the moment, to send them to us, and they will be in our communities of interest where we will co-innovate. So we put this young generation within the communities of interest so that they give us, if they can, because sometimes they don't know exactly what will happen and what they should like, or would like to have. But we help them to fine-tune what could be the use cases in the future. That's one way to develop new solutions, new mobility solutions for this new generation, and not only for this generation we are representing.
Yeah, you said before that we have to think the car differently. What about, because we're not really, I don't hear about it recently, about self-driven cars. We have, remember like 5, 6, 7 years ago, self-driven cars, look at this, it works. And finally, what happened, Netcurik?
So I got vindicated on that question, so I'll get back on a self-driving car. But I agree with both Erics, and especially Eric from Software Republic, on a usage side of things. I think the sort of a problem of utilization needs to be solved. I think, especially on a battery electric vehicles, where you pack so much energy and so much chemistry in these vehicles, and they sit parked at 94% of the time, depending on the markets. It's just not good use of assets. So we have to figure out, how do we use that asset better? Now, do we use it as energy? Do we use it as a mobility? Do we use it as combination of mobility, energy, and something else? I don't know.
And no more pleasure. No more pleasure to have a car in your parking lot. Okay, it stays 85% of the time. Don't look at me like that.
So it'd be interesting to see how everything shapes. I mean, anything, if everything is, false precision, if you try to say, if you give you any sort of a precise idea, but there will be some changes. We just don't know what. Now, on a some. Exactly. on autonomy, I've been asked these questions, for years, and mid-century, like at 14, 15, where everyone went down to autonomy path. I did one simple research and said, well, I had a small autonomous team at the time, maybe with another company, and I did a research and said, this is not going to happen. In the 90s, I worked for a space industry where we built self-autonomous vehicles, but they're flyers. They go in the air and they fly autonomously. So the technology was available. It's a very rudimentary technology, yet the vehicles flew completely autonomously in 90s. So in 2010s, everyone was excited about autonomy. I was not, because for the simple reason, we have streetcars in Europe. And these are big cars, they're on the street, they're constrained, they're on the trucks, yet they're not autonomous. Why they're not autonomous? Because non-humans hit it, they jump over it, they get in the front of it, all kind of different. It's a human in a system problem. This is not a technology problem. Everyone's trying to throw so much. Yes, there is a technology, there is a better optics, better systems, better sensors, better processing, but that's not the way you're going to solve autonomy.
Eric Fantin.
Yeah, for me, what you said just the beginning of your answer on the other usage than the mobility is a bit perturbating for us or for our engineer, but the first time I had this discussion with the electricity supplier, and they were considering an electric car is just a battery on wheels. And so this is happening now, actually, because we all know electricity supply issue, etc. And we can see that those electric cars connected to the grid when they are not driving, which means 80–90% of the time, can play a major role in the stability of the grid with the development of renewable energy. We are presenting here one of the first achievements of Software Republic, which is a bidirectional charger with a software ecosystem around it. And it will really enable the electric car to become a solution to the electricity grid and not a kind of additional problem, because with 50,000 cars, basically you replace one power plant. Huh? So
Not
that's another
adding
view
a problem
to look at
to
the
another
car.
problem, yeah. Because we have too many problems, Paolo. What do you think?
Again, rebounding to what Eric was saying, we need to consider the car as being part of a system, not being alone. The system is much...
Not a garbage, not something we want to...
definitely not a garbage.
To throw.
And we need to very well know what the actual system is before to introduce the new car in the actual system. Because when we consider, and I think it's a great idea to use the electric car as an energy supplier while it is not used, we need to know how the grid it works, how we used to work with it so far. We need to, again, to consider the system. The system is something which includes the car, the streets, the grid in this case, and probably everything which will be interfaced with the car. When it comes to the autonomous car, we need to know how a city is built, for example. And I'm back to what I was saying before. To do that, we need engineers which have developed our system so far, which also have the know-how coming from the new technology. This is really very important, I think.
So, to be clear, it's easy to make a car desirable. Nice design, not so easy, okay. But we have done it in the past and you can still see it here. But how do you make a service desirable? It's like a very nice night in a hotel, a very nice trip, very nice. How could you define it, Eric Fantin? Because your face is in the service, not in the car, not in the product.
No, but I think it starts with understanding the customer usage and the needs. Clearly, I take the example of moving from a combustion engine car to electric car. Of course, if you try to look at the customer behavior just copying what was done before, it doesn't work. But if you really understand what is driving every day an electric car, then of course everything's changed in the way you approach the problem. The charging, for example, I remember in Renault we had this first discussion 10 years ago about charging point in the navigation. What they were doing, some people were proposing, you just replace the tank station by charging station, which is basically giving 2% of the service you need. Because
easy to say.
And now you have very sophisticated electric route planner that tell you when to stop, how long to stop, because you don't charge fully, that will prepare your battery at the right temperature so that when you come and stop, it's very efficient, etc. But this kind of learning is because we don't copy-paste what has been done in the past, and we try to look really profoundly at the customer usage. And I think on services,
this is interesting what you say, because my question was, aren't we going too fast about all this? Isn't it too fast for people to change, like, you know? Of course, we know that we have not to buy petrol cars anymore, drive electric, but the things aren't really prepared. I mean, when you stop by on the street, you want to plug your car, you have to turn around and turn around to try. Nobody's ready for this. Why are we going so fast? Is it politics? Eric Grab.
No, it's CO2. It's decarbonation.
Yes, but still.
No, but we cannot say we are going too fast when we are not.
If you are late for a train, okay, you run very fast, the fastest you can. If you don't catch the train, you don't catch the train. You're not dead, right?
Okay, but I disagree with you when you say we are going too fast.
Of course you do.
Yeah, we are not going enough quick. We should accelerate. And the way to accelerate was given here among this panel. It's clearly cooperation. Every examples we are mentioning are ecosystemic examples. I was just thinking about your comment when you said, well, what is the pleasure of tomorrow, in other words? And I was thinking about Michelin inventing more than one century ago a red guide with restaurants or green guides with... so you can find pleasure also in the way to travel. But more seriously, when I come back to the study we have done with Kantar, they are also saying that for young guys, to meet in a train, or to meet tomorrow in an autonomous navette, or to meet in another public transportation, because of that, so being able to meet the friends, it's also a pleasure. So you don't need to drive anymore, but you have another type of pleasure. So I'm not anxious about finding a pleasure in the future. I'm anxious about our capabilities to work together quickly to find solutions for greenhouse gas emission reduction, for cost reductions, because we are also in this transformation which costs a lot, as you know, as we all know. And I'm anxious about being able to find the right use cases to please our customers. So that's something we should work together on.
Ned Kurik, do you agree about no more pleasure? And it doesn't matter.
I didn't say no more pleasure.
Yes, you did. You did. No more pleasure, and it doesn't matter because you can have
pleasure. Other type of pleasures.
Other type of pleasure. D'ailleurs, ça n'a aucun rapport avec la choucroute. Le guide Michelin et les pneus Michelin, c'est pas grave. Ned Kurik.
Take my soul. No, I don't think I think we're humans. I think we creature that for millions of years progressed in some we invented games 100,000 years ago. If you look back in the human history, I mean we require excitement and the pleasure and gamification and things like that. Now the question is, can you do that, outside of cars? Of course you can. The cars were relatively new, and it's 100 years. I want to also point out this debate on autonomy, electrification, services. We're debating tons of things here, so interesting. We're moving from place to place. But are we moving fast on the services? I say, no, not on the services. I think the services are meeting certain unmet demand. I think we're not moving fast on the service. I think whoever gets a great service, launches a great service, it's got a good adoption, go for it. I mean, Uber, Lyft, or whatever it is. I mean, people subscribe to some, car share services. Sure, if that works, it's great. But you have to really make it work. It's really hard to make it work. But let's say, but we are not moving. Now, on electrification, the cars were electric in early 1900s. So majority of the cars, I don't know how many people know, but majority of the cars, when the cars actually got launched in 1900s, were actually electric, not internal combustion system. So we had the more cars being electric in 1906 than internal combustion engine cars. The internal combustion engine cars became popular because the cost went down the drain compared to battery electric vehicles. And so with the Ford 150, essentially changed the world, T1, in the cost structure. So we need to now figure out how will this transformation get us to a point where electric cars are actually cheaper than internal combustion vehicles. So we talk about the green. I think I absolutely agree CO2 is a big issue. Another big issue is the cost. Electric vehicles are far more costly than existing vehicles. How many people can afford those vehicles? Not many people can be able to afford those vehicles. So now we're dealing with with essentially market economics, you have a supply and demand. People need mobility. Need for mobility is growing. I agree with Eric. And you have to deliver that mobility somehow. How are you going to deliver that mobility is a great question. So are we moving to a world where there's the haves that can afford cars and have-nots? They're going to jump on a different kind of mobility services? I'm not sure. We, as Stellantis, we want to build the cars that everyone can afford. We want to give the freedom mobility for all, so we'll find a way to deliver the vehicles at the price point where customers want to have it. And there will be zero emission, there will be different kind of vehicles, but the format will have to change for the price to be sustainable. Right now, the costing structure is not sustainable.
And this, what you say is very relevant, because it's the discussion now in French government about what we call leasing social, social leasing, which were about, they were about to propose a social leasing for €100 per month, which is huge for some people who don't have this money. And now they are, for what I know, discussing about 200 a month, which is crazy, because it used to be a leasing for a petrol car like 1 or 2 years ago, and it still is for some little cars. So yeah, this is a problem of economics. So service, okay, normal product, okay, but what is the cost of it?
I think, yeah, the cost and value is a kind of everyday job of anybody in the auto industry or mobility industry. But I think what Renault Group is doing with Dacia brand and the success of Dacia brand show that you don't necessarily have a compromise between the two. We have the right value behind the car, but and they can be affordable. The Dacia Spring is the most affordable electric car on the market today, and
not full of software, for all I know.
The question is, does it meet a need? And that's the question.
I didn't say it's about car.
But but it's interesting, because tech, we are always talking about tech as high tech and all the big screens, etc.
Yeah, because we were talking about how to make car different. Okay, we used to have sports cars, luxury cars, crossover cars. Now we have a car which is a car. I mean, a car is a car, it's electric, it's all the same. So when Paolo was talking, we have to think different. For me, it's okay, it's autonomous car. It's self-driven car. When I came here, I had to find a place park for my car. I would love to come here and my car just deposit me, like, you know, and that is the future, but it costs a lot.
Yeah, but don't forget that not everybody will pay for the high-end with a big screen and the autonomous.
Totally.
And so what we are trying to do, for example, in the low-tech segment in Software Republic, is also to use more the smartphone. We have an example, all the driving assistance about drowsiness, for example, which is very common on high-end car. We can bring it to lower-end car just using your smartphone in a clever way. Of course, it's not going to be something to answer regulation.
Some observers say that future generation will be born with a hand, with a smartphone. You know, it will be glued. Yeah. It will be part of our body.
But you can use it, and it's creating value for other segments than the one with the large screen, and which are fantastic, huh? But that not everybody can afford.
What do you think, Paolo?
Again, as we were talking about the emotion, I don't think the problem is whether or not the emotion will stop. Definitely the cars will continue creating an emotion, I think. But what is changing is the emotion itself. The people are considering will consider emotion what they were not considering emotion so far. And I'm pretty much sure I was not existing that time, but when we moved from the horse-tracked vehicles to the cars, to the combustion cars,
petrol cars,
probably it happened pretty much the same discussion. So the emotion is changing. Our matter is how to understand in which sense the emotion will change, and to give to the people who are going to buy or to use the cars the right emotion they're expecting for. Then, if we understand that, everything will move properly. Now, we spent 5 years talking, more than 5 years talking about autonomous cars. Now we are in the middle of electric cars, and we are now, I was saying no longer, it is not true, but we are not talking that much about autonomous car. Probably in the future, there will be a combination of two.
You know why? Because of the responsibility. It's a question of insurance. Nobody knows who's responsible for a car crash. They didn't find it. And it's all about data, because Eric Grab was talking about data. This is the main point. We didn't find who's responsible in the car crash. The road, the car maker, the driver. Sorry, I interrupt you.
The main point for me is, again, to use what we have, to use the technologies we have, to develop new technologies in order to use what we have, in order to leverage what the buyer considers as an emotion. And it doesn't exist a perfect solution. It doesn't exist what will change from today to tomorrow immediately the market. We need to combine all what we know, actually, and put it together with what we know.
Well, it's a philosophical discussion we have. Everybody is thinking about what shall we say next.
No, I want to come back to the autonomy. I think everyone talks about autonomy. I think the constrained autonomy is going to get there. You know, it's sort of robotaxi business, or even unmanned delivery, or the sort of a constraint on a freeway, hands-free, or trucking. You know, sort of a large truck from point A to point B, that kind of stuff. But you have to constrain it. Autonomy, unconstrained autonomy, will not happen anytime soon. Like this sort of a science fiction scenario where you say, hey, you know, car, take me to my grandma. That will not happen anytime soon. It just will not happen. It's just so much complexity in the whole ecosystem that, and it's not a technology problem. Technology will not solve many issues there. But constrained autonomy, like I need a ride, like Uber. I'm on a certain address in a certain part of a city, and I need to go to another address in another part of a city. Yes, that will happen. It will happen in this decade. The truck and trailer, hook up a trailer and drive 700 miles to another state. That will happen in this decade. There will be constrained autonomy that's technologically solvable, policy solvable things that will absolutely happen. But unconstrained autonomy, this sort of imaginary reality of, just talk to my car and car will do the thing, will not happen.
To conclude, Paolo.
This is exactly what I was saying. This solution is exactly what matches technology's constraints, technology's availability, customer request. This is what we can do right now, and we are going to do that. And this is true for everything what we are talking about. So,
and because you were talking about horses in the 1910s, when car appeared, was dramatically expensive. So we're at the same point of history. Now we have electric car with a lot of skills inside, and it's too expensive, like it used to be, in comparison of the horse, who became what? A hobby.
No,
so the cars, the petrol cars, will become hobbies for collectors. Nick Mason, the Floyd drummer, has a beautiful truck in England, a collection of Ferraris, and he drives one every day.
Yeah, but you are talking about the top of the pyramid.
Yeah, but I'm afraid of it.
Yeah, but we have market segments, like we said, which are low tech, and they want to go from point A to point B. And if we are offering a safe travel, and if we at the end of the point B, they can reach what they want to do, visiting a new chateau in Bretagne, having fun in a restaurant.
Avec le guide Michelin.
Avec le guide Michelin, they will be happy. So we should not, consider the market as one market. We have many different markets. And to conclude, my point is that even if these new technologies are very expensive, as you said, we have a solution which is based on services, and we should develop services. The problem is we are not companies naturally, let's say, experience with services. So we have to develop new software, new savoir-faire, new know-how, and again, new talents to develop these services.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Eric Fintin, Eric Grab, Ned Curic, and Paolo De Noce. Please applause them. Thank you very much.